let me just, based on the previous talk, let me give you a couple of factoids. At General Motors, when we did the study, I was asked, what does CAE cost? Now, we're talking about CAE, I'm not talking about CAD and PLM and the rest of it, but it turned out that for each fully burdened CAE person, you were paying, and I think that number today is probably $200,000 a year that you say pays for his salary and his benefits and so on. We were spending an additional headcount equivalent, another 200,000, if you will, on high-performance computing, software, special workstations, and so on. So that's one factoid. The other thing is the cost of simulation. Out of the $20,000 that GM was getting from a dealer for a car, about 750 of that is product engineering. Okay, I should tell you that over 800 is warranty and recalls, so they spend more time fixing the cars than they did in engineering them in the first place. But of the 750, $15 is CAE. So I sort of fail to see how is simulation too expensive? I mean, I think there's a much bigger danger of not doing enough. So we talked about having confidence in doing all of this. And Rod Dreisbach, who was mentioned, gave a keynote. We walked into the room, and Ricardo Actis from ESRD deserves some credit here too. But Rod walked into the room and he sat down and he said, the issue is simulation governance. That's what the issue is how do you manage simulation as a strategic part of your business to make sure that you're getting it right, that the organization understands what's going on, how it can be used, and so on. So these are the people who were in the room. You can read the listing. This is Laura's slide, so she labeled Ken Welch as a defector because he left about halfway through the discussion, but then again, apparently Ravi Shankar saw the light because he joined us from a different session.
You give Ken credit for going to a different...
Yeah, Ken went to another session. He thought that, maybe he wasn't getting as much as he could out of the conversation. Okay, so these are some of the people. Ricardo Actis is from ESRD, and in fact, it was he and Professor Barnasabo who really coined a few years ago the term simulation governance as you need to manage simulation in your organization. So the scope includes the model fidelity, as has been mentioned a couple of times, verification, validation, uncertainty quantification, risk management, deployment, and the governance. And if you look at that sheet that you have, look at the definition for unsexy stuff, and you'll see that what that's really talking about is the simulation governance issues. Enablers to increase the confidence. I think there was a firm agreement in the room of a couple of things, that this is largely, or in large part, this is a business problem. It's how do you run your business, how do you do simulation, how do you embed it into your product development process. And I can speak at length as to how you do that. What it comes down to is you have to document every load case you're going to do with simulation. You write down the standard work, you automate it to the largest extent that you can, and you put it out there and say, this is the way that our company does this job, and we're going to do it the same way every time we do it. And over time, we'll build our confidence in our capability that if this is the way we engineer this component or subsystem or system, we will get a good result. So there are issues there with skills and competencies and culture. And just a comment that I don't believe that the simulation experts are going to pull this off for themselves. This is a corporate management issue in getting the organization to understand what simulation can do, where it's appropriate, and then, as I said, embed it into the engineering process such that the organization is rallied around actually leveraging the simulation for better product design. So simulation governance is simulation management as a corporate strategic asset. Ricardo Actis will talk about you have to have command and control of the assets that you're using to do simulation. You need to understand the business need and communicate the ROI of investing time in managing simulation. And you can then get those things of reduced cost time, better quality, business growth, innovation, and reduce risk. So our next step was essentially that we need to get this message, we need to put the message together. And then we need to take that message to corporate management and say, listen, this is what you need to do, here are steps on how to do it, and try to get them to understand the importance of managing simulation properly, because they will increasingly be making decisions based on simulation earlier on in the product development process, earlier on when they're still looking at concepts and architecture. And it's very important that you manage it properly and that you get it right. Because if you decrease your efforts for development testing, your reliance on simulation can in some ways increase your risk. So we've done a few things. There was a session at, and this was before the Assess conference, but there was a session last year at NAFEMS on simulation governance. I've also organized a series of webinars around simulation governance with NAFEMS that are currently going on. We have 2 more planned. And there will be another session on simulation governance at the upcoming NAFEMS conference this summer. So I believe that's what I have. I'd be welcome to entertain questions. There are a couple of papers that we've written on this already, but we're going to put together the message for engineering, product development management in a way that it can be used to address the issues with them. Joe?
Do you have any questions for Keith?
In the back, Evan?
Hello, Evan.
Hello. Is engineering management really the people you need to talk to, or is it a level higher than that that actually makes the bigger decisions about simulation? And have you looked at how to reach that higher level to get corporate buy-in?
I think it's not the managers of the CAE people. It's above that. It's the chief engineers who are responsible for product development are the ones who need to understand this is the way they should run their business.
I suspect that these people also need to have you give them tools that they can use to carry the message to the board.
Yeah, they need to set the vision and the expectations. They don't have to understand how to formulate finite elements, but they do need to set their expectations. What SimData does is, and my specialty is simulation, we do consulting with end-user companies who try to use simulation, do the data management, and so on. And it is sometimes quite remarkable how they do all the simulations and then they don't trust them. And so they're really not leveraging the simulations in the way they can. We have one company that I joke, they have simulation-driven test. Because if simulation shows something interesting, they will go run a test.
But I think if you notice, the slide says CXO message, so eventually the understanding and the intentions to get it to the CXO level. Because it impacts business strategic issues. And that's the real message we're trying to communicate. You have a question? Wait for the microphone. And please give your name.
Darren Young with Southern Industries. You mentioned people not trusting the simulation. Are they not trusting the simulation? Are they not trusting that they know how to use simulation?
They're not trusting their own capability, and they're not working to improve their confidence and the capability. So, for example, we worked with a large heavy equipment manufacturing company. Okay, so and they make these things that are made out of steel plates, right? Bulldozers and so on. And they would do all the simulations, they would make their durability predictions, the noise and vibration and so on. 18 months later, they would go through the product validation, right? Now I've completed my design, I've built the early versions of the product, and I validate that it works. They do not go back and ask the question, how good was the simulation? Everyone loses interest because I validated the product. You know, the simulation guy's on some other project, and the chief engineer, he's validated his product. He's not interested in spending money on closing that loop and building their confidence and in improving their capability.
We have a question from Chris.
Chris, can you stand?
I can. Yeah, just one thing, and I meant to mention this when I saw the presentation at Assess, but when we talk about the messengers, you talk about the messaging to the CXO. We have to have the employees, the users of the software in that group that's carrying that message, and it's not listed there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I mean, Brad and Joe are two people, right? They don't ever listen to the software suppliers. You can trust me on that one. They'll listen to the consultants, right, and the analysts, but those employees have to be carrying that message forward in a manner that their CXOs can understand the value of the engineering.
I would agree, and I would also agree that this presentation is a little slanted in that respect. But certainly, I mean, things like verification, validation, uncertainty quantification, that falls squarely into the laps of the CAE experts. That's their job, to figure out how to use the software and use it reliably. You know, reliable, robust, and repeatable.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll move on to the next presentation.